Vengeance has a new name, and it begins with a noun. Hey everyone, VGT Adam here. I just recently saw the Batman, as in like the movie, not the cartoon. You know, the cartoon's good. Everyone should give that a try. But yeah, I'm getting this out later than everyone else because like I was slightly busy over the weekend of when it premiered. Plus the 3 hour runtime kind of scared me, and not because it's 3 hours, because I have a tiny bladder. So it's just like I don't want to fucking pee during the showing, which happened anyway. But I tried to make sure I could rush back, and it was during an action scene. But anyway, I just saw the Batman, and before I get into that, I just want to mention how this film first came to production. Like, originally it was supposed to be part of the DCEU, and it was going to be written and directed by Ben Affleck. And I think, to my knowledge, it was supposed to be like Deathstroke would be the main villain, but also be like a semi-adaptation of Arkham Asylum, the video game. That was the impression I got. And then that went to production hell. And then at some point, I think it went to Matt Reeves to direct and write, but Ben Affleck was still involved or something like that. And then at some point, it was just dropped altogether, and then Matt Reeves just made its own standalone Batman thing. And then early in production, like, everyone heard about Robert Pattinson being cast as Bruce Wayne, and everyone was like, oh, the Twilight guy, ignoring all his other films he's done. Like, they're good actors in that film, it's just the films are bad. That's why the films are bad, but they're not bad actors in those films. That's just how it is. Sometimes good actors are in shitty films. Sometimes shitty actors are in good films. It's just how it is. But then he was cast and everything, and I don't really care. What I heard was, like, it was supposed to be more of a detective movie, and I'm like, oh, it's Riddler. Riddler's going to be the main villain. It makes the most sense if you want, like, some kind of mystery or detective film. You get someone whose main thing is, like, making a mystery, riddles. So that's pretty much all it was, and then, COVID delayed the production. Everything was supposed to come out a little sooner. Point is, movie's out, getting tons of praise. People are comparing it to Nolan's trilogy. What do I think? I think Nolan's films are better films, but that's because more like I don't know so much about Dark Knight Rises, but Batman Begins and Dark Knight are more like good movies that happen to have Batman stuff in it. Whereas I think The Batman is the best Batman movie. It literally feels like, imagine this as a standalone comics run that's just on the big screen. It feels like that. It doesn't feel like, I mean, obviously they had to fit some stuff to make it work for a movie, but like, it feels more like you take the pages out of a comic book and you just slap on a TV screen. That's kind of what this movie is, where the Nolan movies are more like these really good movies, and I think honestly the Nolan movies are still better written, but they still feel like movies that just happen to have comic book aspects in it. This feels like the de facto comic book movie, and not like, oh, it's for kids, a comic book. No, this feels like, think of one of the best Batman stories you can, and it's on the big screen. It's kind of like that. It's kind of hard for me to go over, like, I know in some other podcasts of mine, I go over, like, the actual, like, not beat by beat, but I go by, like, the film stuff. It's kind of hard for me to do that because not only is it 3 hours, I just came out of the film. So it's like, I'm trying to, like, process a bunch of stuff, and, like, yeah. So I can't really go over the plot, but I will say that this podcast will have spoilers, because there's some things I just need to discuss. But I'll say this, though, is that, like, this is still a good movie. This is a really good movie. Obviously, all the acting is phenomenal. It's great. There's no bad performance whatsoever. I like how most of it was, like, stunt work. Like, you know how in a bunch of credit scenes for movies, you see, like, the special effects thing is just a wall of text? It was like that for this, but instead it was the stunt team was just a wall of text. And, like, there was very little CGI. Like, I'm sure there's still some, but, like, it was so limited that it was mostly just practical, and that's really good. I think the worst aspect of this movie, there's two things, and it's not really awful. Is that the art department wasn't great. I didn't really like a lot of designs, like the costumes or the Batmobile. Like, the Batsuit had cool aspects to it. It's like the most powerful Batsuit ever. Like, it can tank so many bullets. Not shotguns, but that makes sense. But the design of it's kind of eh. Catwoman's thing was just literally a caterpillar, and like her mask, her ski mask happened to have, oh, it's little pointy ears, like it's a cat. The Batmobile wasn't too great. Riddler's design made sense for the film. You obviously can't have just his full-on green thing. It'd be a little too silly. But, like, it was still just, like, eh. And, like, there's a plot reason why he's like that, I guess. It's because, like, towards the end, you have a bunch of other, like, of his followers, more or less his cult members, dress up like him, too. But where was I going? Yeah, like stuff like that. Like Gotham itself looks great, but it just looks like a really shitty city. But like a bunch of the art stuff wasn't great in the film. And the other thing I'll say is that like usually when you have some kind of mystery film, it's all the clues are there. It's just that you couldn't see them because you weren't privy to the knowledge. And then if you do a rewatch, it's like, oh, now I see the clue, now I see the clue, now I see the clue. Here, not so much. It's just more of a case of like, hey, the higher up white corrupt people are the people responsible for all this. That's kind of it. Like the way they get there is really interesting. And I like how the talking and detective scenes and like crime scenes were sometimes more interesting than the action scenes. Not that the action was bad, but like the crime scenes were still really interesting. I want to hear what they said. But when it comes down to I'm taking these people out because they're corrupt and they destroy the city, it's like it's not a really good mystery. Like it doesn't really feel like a mystery to me. In fact, something would have worked better that they teased and then kind of subverted it, and it's that like I was thinking at some point that this is Riddler, but it'd be like a mix of Riddler and Hush, where it'd be Thomas Elliot, Bruce's childhood friend, taking the role of the Riddler, but he's doing this to get back at the Waynes and like he finding out all the corruption in the city while he's doing that kind of thing. And they actually tease something like that where like it shows a thing about how Riddler's gonna be targeting Bruce Wayne to kill him, and at one point it shows Edward Elliot. It's like, oh wait, what? And then when they're talking about like how something about like being quiet, it has literally the name Hush over the Riddler. It's like, are they actually doing the Thomas Elliot thing? No, it's more of a subversion. If you know comics, they probably just threw you for a loop. If you don't know comics, that's not going to say anything to you. But like, it actually tricked you into thinking it would be Thomas Elliot as a twist. It's not. It's still Edward Nigma, or they use his real name, Edward Nashton. That's his true name. But they use that, and it just turns out, yeah, Riddler's just trying to corrupt the city, and he thought Batman was his equal, and then Riddler technically kind of wins. Technically, he wins. Like he still loses because he's in jail and his scheme was foiled, but he still got a lot away with his scheme. So, yeah. And why the heck keep his identity secret? That made me think more of his Thomas Elliot, because like if Bruce saw, oh my god, it's my childhood friend, this explains so much, it'd make more sense. But no, it's just a guy. They had no real reason to hide his identity. It's just a guy, but whatever. The fucking cinematography in this film is great. Like we're so used to a lot of like bleh shots because let's be honest, as good as the MCU has like very basic bland shots. They're getting a little better now, but like a lot of films had that. And this has like truly like good movie shots. This is really filmed well too, and it's written well. It's written well also. It's just not like the reason why Nolan's films are like also written better is because they're like monologues and like there's things people in real life wouldn't really say, and it sounds better on a film. This film has more things like that people would actually say, and because of that, it doesn't seem as well written. It's still well written, but because like people talk more naturally, it doesn't seem as theateresque and grand like the Nolan films are. But I mean, like, in that case, they don't really talk like real people. It's just like a bunch of sayings and more whatever. And this is being compared to Nolan films because of the whole dark, gritty, realistic aspect to it. And this one actually has more realism than the Nolan ones, I think. Like, when Batman glides, he needs an actual glider suit. He can't just use his cape. So there's actually some more realism in this than the Nolan films. I will give this over the Nolan films big time. The overall here's how I like the difference this. All fight scenes are action scenes, but not all action scenes are fight scenes. The action scenes in both this film and the Nolan films are great. The fight scenes in this one are so much better than anything in the Nolan films. All the fight scenes in Nolan films are just not great. They're horribly choreographed, horribly shot, so slow, uninteresting. And sure, maybe they serve the plot and characters, like say in Dark Knight Rises, the first Batman vs. Bane served the plot and characters, but the fight itself was awful. Oh, it was okay. Their second rematch was actually awful. A bunch of like obviously Batman Begins had like some of the worst actions, like fucking you can't see anything because of the shaky cam. The action scenes in this are really well done. I think they're only second out to the Batman vs. Superman warehouse scene with Batman. That's still like the best Batman fight scene, action scene, whatever you call it. That's still the best one. This one has some pretty good ones in it too. This still feels like Batman. And what I will say to that is you can tell that this is a young Batman. Also, like, this film just kind of just throws you in, assumes you know the backstory, you know at least some stuff about Batman. It doesn't like hold your hand or anything like that, which I do like. We don't need another origin story. We've had 2.5 at this point, because you had the 80s films, you had Nolan films, and they kind of teased and be Batman vs. Superman kind of thing. We've had enough. Plus of all the TV shows and everything, we had enough. So it just throws you in. But I do like that this shows this is a younger Batman, in that, like, he still messes up, and a more older Batman might sometimes just burst in, like if he's angry or in a hurry to something. But if he knows he's outgunned, he'd probably like try to sneak in. This Batman's like, yeah, you guys have a bunch of guns, and like there's like 40 of you. Yeah, maybe not 40, maybe like, there's 20 of you. I'm just gonna bust into the front through the front door, and like that shows he's still kind of inexperienced and more rage filled than older Batman, who's a lot more tired, I guess. So like, yeah, it's just like the fact that he shows how like he's still inexperienced. He's still kind of just like barging in. And the one thing I want to bring up is that like there's this theme of vengeance where Batman uses like that's what his drive is, his reason for protecting the city is vengeance. And like it ends up throwing him for a loop when he sees that there's other forms of vengeance that he doesn't agree with. Like Catwoman wants to kill a certain person for her vengeance, and he doesn't agree with it. The Riddler's goons want to take vengeance on the city because of what the corruptness has done to this city, stuff like that. And it actually gives Batman character development, which we don't really get in the films. Like, breathe. Because you think about like the most you get in like, oh, I know what I am now, is your character development. Like, being Batman Begins is like, oh, I'm lost, I don't know, and all of a sudden, oh, I'm a symbol for hope. It's just like that. And like, I still haven't seen the Burton films, or unfortunately, I've only seen like fucking Batman, Robin of those fucking films. But I know enough of like the old ones where it's like he hasn't really seen it go through character development. It's just like he is. This one goes through a bit of development, trying to get to that whole like I'm vengeance, no, I'm a symbol, I'm hope, kind of thing, and learning more about the underworks of the city, like because you know he's a rich person, he might not know how it works, and he's learning more and more about it. I like that Batman's actually a character in this film, not just a plot device or just like a thing that has to be in this film. He's actually a character that should be in the film. It's called The Batman. He should be one of, if not the main focus, right? Because think about it, Dark Knight is great, but the only thing people really remember Batman for is Batman, I'm not wearing nasty pads. What do people really like about that film? Heath Ledger's Joker. They like Joker way more. Like, Batman seems to be overshadowing a lot of his own films. Like, even in the 80s film, Jack Nicholson's thing stole the show. People like Michael Keaton after all this time, but at the time they didn't like him. What about Batman Returns? You had Penguin and Catwoman, who ironically are in this movie too. Kind of overshine him. Just like Batman seems to be overshined his own movie. This one, I think he's like the best part of the movie, especially since we see a lot of Batman. We don't get a lot of Bruce Wayne. I will say that this Bruce Wayne I don't like because it's just like he's always Batman all the time. Like he's always sad, always depressed. Like I know like this Gotham's a lot more grungy, a lot more dirty. And it's kind of reflected that, like how everyone's sad and everything, but like Bruce Wayne's always supposed to put on a face and seem like happy and go lucky and dumb, which I think the Nolan films did thankfully do. But he doesn't really have that here. He's always just like depressed, and like he always does have. Unfortunately, he does have emo hair for a lot of this film, but Bruce Wayne himself is not in this film a lot. This is definitely more of a Batman film. And it's good for doing that. It's good for doing that. What else? Let's see. Penguin in this movie, fucking Colin Farrell. You can't even tell he's so destroyed in makeup, but he's good. He's great. He's just another mobster, but he has a bit of deformity. He's great. There's not much I can really say about it. Catwoman, Selena Kyle, Zoe Kravitz. Really good. I personally not a fan of Zoe Kravitz as an actor. As a person, she seems like wonderful, but I just like anytime I see her in a film, it's just like I don't care. And like this film did help me a bit more. It's like, okay, she's good. Still not my thing, but she's still good. And her whole little mini arc in this film is also pretty decent. It's just, I don't know, it's just a good movie. Okay, there is a cameo in this film, and it's the Joker. He's kind of hidden, and once again with the art department, his design didn't look great from what I can tell. It's hard to tell. He's kind of covered in shadow and like hidden behind a door and everything. And I know people are going to think it's teasing a sequel, but to my knowledge, the cameo is more to establish that like, I mean, Batman's been Gotham for 2 years. He must have done other stuff than just this one, right? I think that's to imply that like, he has a couple of villains already before Riddler. Riddler's not his first big one. I think that's the implication. I haven't seen any videos explaining it yet. I just came home from the theater to record, so I'm not sure. But I mean, like, what else are you gonna tease? Like, Joker's the most well-known Batman villain. You could tease other ones. Like, not only could we fix previous Batman villains that haven't gotten their due, such as Poison Ivy or Mr. Freeze, like they haven't gotten better versions, but we could also do like more modern things. Like, oh, how about this? The whole corruption of Gotham could have also involved the Court of Owls, like this whole secret shadowy organization behind the scenes controlling everything. and then we could get not only a good mystery about the core of Alice, but then a good actual like physical villain as well with Talon, right? Or Talons, wherever they work. We get like, you know, we get the brains of this, and we get the brawn in the action scenes, but like, how about we get like a mix of that when it comes to like the detective stuff before the end, the detective stuff throughout the movie, and at the end we finally get like a big bad to fight. Now you don't always need that in a Batman movie, and this movie shows you don't need it because it's good without having it. But if I'm saying for a sequel to escalate things, you know what I mean? And to have more like modern Batman villains, so it's not just always the same ones over and over. Or if you're gonna do the same ones, fix the ones that were broken. Or just have ones that haven't had time to shine in movies. Like, I know this realistic thing, you can't have like Clayface or anything like that, but like, maybe we could do some way to have Killer Croc. Like, I feel like that could work in some way if you fix it up a bit. Like, just have some villains that really haven't had their time to shine. I know Killer Croc was in Suicide Squad, but that's besides the point. That's DCEU. But even then, like, he was kind of like whatever in that film, because that film's just terrible anyway. Point is, like, I don't know why I chose Killer Croc. I'm trying to think of Batman villains off my head that aren't just like, I have Ra's al Ghul already. Had Talia. Strange. Oh, there you go, Hugo Strange. The Professor Strange. Another intellectual thing to Batman. You can do something like that too, especially since he's one who usually figures out Batman's identity. There's another mystery you can do this for someone that don't. Oh my god, I can't fucking speak. I've had this problem for so long. Jesus. There's another thing you could do that's still a detective film, is him murdering him and him figuring out Batman's identity and that whole issue that would cause it that. Plus, maybe the majority of people don't know who Hugo Strange is. I know, like, people who know comics and video games might because of, like, Arkham games and just a bunch of other representation, but the main movie-going audience might not know it, so why not do something like that, right? Okay, back to the movie. Anyway, I do like Andy Serkis' Alfred. Also, John Turturro was fucking in this movie. It was so weird to see that. And he, like, playing a serious role, not some kind of goofy thing. It's like, sorry, he could play serious characters. And there's a whole bunch of, like, intertwining, like, plot lines going on, but they never forget about the one main thing, which is, like, the Riddler and what he's after and everything like that. I do think the 3 hours is a little long. I feel like there could have been something that could be shortened down. Like, there's a great chase scene with Penguin and Batman, and I feel like at least a couple seconds of that, maybe a minute, could have been cut down. Not like all of it, obviously. You need a lot of attention, stuff like that, but I feel like a little bit was a little excessive. Like, just, you can cut a little bit of this out. It's just easier to watch long movies if you have a pause button. You don't have a pause button in a movie theater, you know what I mean? And then, like, also, like, the more realistic we get with Batman films, the less, like, villains we really show on screen, because a lot of Batman villains are really goofy, and stuff that wouldn't really work unless you have that supernatural element. And, like, the more realistic we get, the harder it's gonna be to really do that. And just, like, I don't know, I feel like you're limiting yourself by making it only realistic. But, whatever. What else? I didn't write down any notes. I covered the action. I do like how, because what I like about the Waynes is that, like, even in a corrupt city where even most of the rich people are assholes, that the Waynes were the shining example of, like, they are actually the good rich people that most people want to aspire to be when they're rich people. Because, like, even in real life, like, some rich people aren't the best kind of people. Like, what I like about the Waynes is that they're the exception. And one thing I don't like is that movies have a tendency to, like guide the pop culture osmosis of, like, what people know about characters. Like, most people know about characters because of these movies, right? And they kind of guides how people think about it I don't know. It guides people to, like, how think about it for, like, years on end. There we go. And, like, one thing I didn't like about The Joker, which is a great film too, is that this show Thomas Wayne is more like just another one of these corrupt assholes kind of thing. It's just like, oh, so we're gonna have this too? And what this movie does is it does something a little more interesting where the Waynes are good, but they're still human, and Thomas Wayne did a pretty big mess up, pretty big, but he did regret it. He wasn't fully involved in everything, so it shows, like, he's still he's still a good person. He kind of just made a mistake. He's not just a rich person who happens to be, like, corrupt like everyone else. I like, if you're gonna do that, that's the way to do it. It's supposed to just, oh, now he's just Trump, like he did in Joker. It's just, like, I don't like that. I prefer when at least the Waynes are still portrayed as good. And this one was like, yeah, they're good. They're human. They messed up, which is, it's fine. I also like how like Batman's tech. Actually, yeah, like he has like one. He has literally one batarang. And he doesn't use like a batarang. It's in his chest. His chest emblem is the batarang. And he doesn't ever use like a batarang. He uses to cut something, but he never throws or anything like that. He has some gadgets, but he doesn't really use too many of them. He uses the grapple hook the most, or grapple gun, whatever, grapnel gun, whatever. But like, yeah, he doesn't really have batarangs or the things you would expect. Like, yeah. Anyway, but he has like these tech like contacts for him, and I like the way they, I like that. Like the way they work and everything like that, it's just really interesting. Plus, it helps with the whole detective thing. Like you need to scan all your environments and everything like that. Um, Besides the whole thing about me thinking it was Hush, there weren't any really like good twists. But what I do like is that you can tell that there was a bunch of comic book influence. Like he had a Matt Reeves, and I think he wrote it too. But like anyone who was on the team definitely had to look up more Batman stories than just probably the norm. Because like I'm thinking like, okay, this is like year one ish. This is kind of like this, kind of like this. And at the end when Gotham being flooded, I'm like, oh, this is No Man's Land. Not to mention the whole big theme about No More Lies, No Man's Land. They're both the same acronym, NML. Which is that probably just me, that probably just coincidence. But that'd be kind of interesting. It's like, oh, No More Lies, No Man's Land, NML. I don't know. This is just something I picked up on. Um, I think this is a really good movie. I think like the 3 hours is a little too long. Here's a good point. The film ends and keeps going. Now, thankfully, it's not like Lord of the Rings, but like there's a clear end point. But they try to wrap up a little bit more loose ends and it takes like a little longer. But it's like I feel like you could have did these scenes beforehand and then had the end in some way, shape, or form. But they don't detract from the film in any way. It's just like I get you need to tell the story you need to tell, but at some point you gotta realize like people are still human. We have attention spans. Thankfully, this movie didn't feel long. Thankfully, it didn't feel long. It felt good, except for the time where I had to pee. But that's beside the point. But it is a good movie, and like also, I like how it's 2 years and like he's mostly known, but you have those few people who are like, oh, who's this Bat guy? And the whole thing about Batman is that like a guy in a Bat costume isn't scary. It's supposed to incite fear, yes, but that's not what's scary. What's scary is how efficient he is. So it's like, oh, this guy in a Bat costume, they start beating everyone up. Oh shit, he's gonna beat me up. That's what's really scary about Batman, is that how fucking intimidating he is, not the actual Bat costume itself. But that doesn't change the fact that the costume is so shitty. I don't know. I feel like we're getting closer to like this is probably like one of the best Batman films. That's still also a good movie, but I feel like we're getting closer and closer to like the perfect Batman film. We're getting really close. I just want one that's not revolved around the Joker again. I know they had the Joker in this one, but I want him to just be like only in the background, only teased, only stuff like that. I don't want him to actually be in this. If they're gonna do this as a trilogy, if they do that, I want more villains. I want more. I don't want just another Joker thing. I know he's the insistent Batman, but we already have both the Dark Knight and also with Joker. We have enough for now. Give Joker a rest. Have some other villains shine. One of my main problems with Arkham Origins was that. And actually, some layers of Arkham Origins did that too, like the whole corrupt police force and everything. Although Batman doesn't fight too many police officers in this film compared to Arkham Origins, where you fight them. And of course, like the mobs involved. That's just early Gotham. The mobs are always involved. It's just how it is. I don't know. It's just like it is a really good movie. And like for anyone who knows my taste, like if you see my podcast, I have a podcast on Logan, which is more of a Western. I have a podcast on Godzilla vs. Kong, which is so fucking goofy and stupid. Like I have varied tastes. So you might think like, okay, he likes Batman, sure, but like this whole dark, serious detective thing is not over the top or silly. Yeah. Yeah, I have varied tastes. It happens. But yeah, this movie is just really good. I need to like wait for physical release to like really analyze it and see like, okay, what's more of the problems I have. But I don't think it's gonna be too many, because I think it's still a good film. I think it's a really good film. But yeah, like I still do want a true like old tired Bruce that still like feels like a Batman, not like a murderer. Like what I like about Batfleck was like he had that old Batman down, but he killed and I didn't like that. But like, how about we have this Batman? Obviously not the same actor, because Rob Pattinson has baby face. Let's be honest. Like he's in his 30s or something. Maybe close to his 40s. He still looks like he's like a teenager. No, like early teens. He looks like he's in his early teens, which fits for this younger Batman. But like, he's always probably gonna look young. So like, if we ever get like this universe but an older Batman, I'd be fine with that, because this one actually has the whole no kill rule and sticks to it, because every other Batman in films, to my knowledge, kills. I think even Adam West like indirectly killed people. Like Michael Keaton killed. Christian Bale like, I don't kill you, but I don't have to save you. It's like that's the same thing. You're killing him. and then like, obviously Batfleck. This one has a strict no kill policy, and I like that. So if we ever get like this Batman later in life, that'd be great. That'd be great. I don't know if we ever should have a Robin in the film. This film doesn't tease it, thankfully, but I'm saying like I don't know if we should ever have a Robin, but maybe seeing the Bat family on screen would be cool at one point. I'm kind of just going like fan fiction at this point. My whole point is that this movie is really good. There are some aspects to it I don't like, but that didn't stop me. And like this is really good. I look to see more from Matt Reeves and his team and everything doing more Batman movies. Don't overdo it where we get like 7 of them, but like I wouldn't mind a good, nice, solid trilogy, honestly. But yeah, it's like this is a good movie. I highly recommend it. Yeah, I got nothing else to say. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, The Batman, really good. Also, people should watch the TV show. It's probably the second best animated Batman show behind Batman the Animated Series. And if you're not a Batman fan and want to get into Batman, I recommend Batman the Animated Series. It's probably the most true to origin, true to text Batman in media ever. And this comes kind of close to that. I wouldn't say it's at there. It's still not there, but it's getting close. It's getting good. Maybe get Paul Dini on as a writer in one of these films too. See how that goes. But anyway, point is, good film. Really liked it. Fight scenes were great. Acting was great. Cinematography was great. Story was pretty good. Action scenes are really great. The detective thing could have been a little better. Costumes were a little meh. But overall, great film. Highly recommend it. And this was another case of me just stuttering and just talking like a shitty person. Jesus. Anyway, alright, that's the end. Alright, bye. See ya.